Alright, alright. Can you hear me? I don't know. I don't know if that's. Can anyone hear me? I would hope so. You had better be able to. Well, this will be quite boring. Alright, so we're going to hit text 54. And I'm doing it live because I'm about out of storage space. Text 54. Arjuna said, "What are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak, and what is his language? How does he sit, and how does he walk?" Purport. As there are symptoms for each and every man in terms of his particular situation, similarly, one who is Krishna conscious has his particular nature, talking, walking, thinking, feeling, etc. As a rich man has his symptoms by which he is known as a rich man, as a diseased man has his symptoms by which he is known as diseased, or as a learned man has his symptoms, so a man in transcendental consciousness of Krishna has specific symptoms in various dealings. One can know his specific symptoms from the Bhagavad Gita. Most important is how the man in Krishna consciousness speaks, for speech is the most important quality of any man. It is said that a fool is undiscovered as long as he does not speak, and certainly a well-dressed fool cannot be identified unless he speaks. But as soon as he speaks, he reveals himself at once. The immediate symptom of a Krishna conscious man is that he speaks only of Krishna and of matters relating to him. Other symptoms then automatically follow, as stated below, which is stated in text 55. Which translates as, "The blessed Lord said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of sense desire which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness." Purport. The Bhagavatam affirms that any person who is fully in Krishna consciousness or devotional service of the Lord has all the good qualities of the great sages, whereas a person who is not so transcendently situated has no good qualifications, because he is sure to be taking refuge in his own mental concoctions. Consequently, it is rightly said herein that one has to give up all kinds of sense desire manufactured by mental concoction. Artificially, such sense desires cannot be stopped, but if one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, then automatically sense desires subside without extraneous efforts. Therefore, one has to engage himself in Krishna consciousness without hesitation, for this devotional service will instantly help one on the platform of transcendental consciousness. The highly developed soul always remains satisfied in himself by realizing himself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. Such a transcendentally situated person has no sense desires resulting from petty materialism. Rather, he remains always happy in his natural position of eternally serving the Supreme Lord. Text 56. Translation. One who is not disturbed in spite of the threefold miseries, who is not elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. Purport. The word muni means one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion. It is said that every muni has a different angle of vision, and unless a muni differs from other munis, he cannot be called a muni in the strict sense of the term. Nasau muniryasa matyam na binam, but a sithya, a sitha dvimuni, god damn, as mentioned herein by the Lord, is different from an ordinary muni. The Srithyadui Muni is always in Krishna consciousness, for he has exhausted all his business of creative speculation. He has surpassed the stage of mental speculations and has come to the conclusion that Lord Sri Krishna or Vasudeva is everything. He is called a Muni fixed in mind. Such a fully Krishna conscious person is not at all disturbed by the onslaughts of the threefold miseries, for he accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds. And he sees that his miseries, excuse me, by the grace of the Lord, are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord. Thinking himself unworthy of the happiness, he realizes that it is due only to the Lord's grace that he is in such a comfortable condition and able to render better service to the Lord. And for the service of the Lord, he is always daring and active, and is not influenced by attachment or aversion. Attachment means accepting things for one's own sense gratification, and detachment is the absence of such sensual attachment. But one fixed in Krishna consciousness has neither attachment nor detachment, because his life is dedicated in the service of the Lord. Consequently, he is not at all angry, even when his attempts are unsuccessful. A Krishna conscious person is always steady in his determination. Text 57. He who is without attachment, who does not rejoice when he obtains good, nor lament when he obtains evil, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Purport. There is always some upheaval in the material world which may be good or evil. One who is not agitated by such material upheavals, who is unaffected by good and evil, is to be understood to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one is in the material world, there is always the possibility of good and evil, because this world is full of duality. But one who is fixed in Krishna consciousness is not affected by good and evil, because he is simply concerned with Krishna, who is all good absolute. Such consciousness in Krishna situates one in a perfect transcendental position called, technically, Samhadi. Text 58. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws his limbs within the shell, is to be understood as truly situated in knowledge. Purport. The test of a yogi, devotee, or self-realized soul is that he is able to control the senses according to his plan. Most people, however, are servants of the senses, and are thus directed by the dictation of the senses. That is the answer to the question as to how the yogi is situated. The senses are compared to venomous serpents. They want to act very loosely and without restriction. The yogi or devotee must be very strong to control the serpents. Like a snake charmer, he never allows them to act independently. Excuse me. There are many injunctions in the revealed scriptures. Some of them are do nots, and some of them are do's. Unless one is able to follow the do's and the do nots, restricting oneself from sense enjoyment, it is not possible to be firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. The best example set herein is the tortoise. The tortoise can at any moment wind up his senses and exhibit them again at any time for particular purposes. Similarly, the senses of the Krishna conscious person are used only for some particular purpose in the service of the Lord, and are withdrawn otherwise. Keeping the senses always in the service of the Lord is the example set by the analogy of the tortoise, who keeps the senses within. Now, I will comment, though, that if the tortoise were to, at an inopportune time, what's the word he fucking used there? Wind up his limbs or his senses, he would find himself at a disadvantage. This is where your temple making comes in. You must know when it is a safe time to be vulnerable, as it is. Text 59. Yawn. The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste of sense objects remains, but ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. Purport. Unless one is transcendentally situated, it is not possible to cease from sense enjoyment. The process of restriction from sense enjoyment by rules and regulations is something like restricting a diseased person from certain types of edibles. Excuse me. The patient, however, neither likes such restrictions nor loses his taste for edibles. Similarly, sense restriction by some spiritual process like Astanga Yoga in the matter of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, etc., is recommended for less intelligent persons who have no better knowledge. But one who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord Krishna in the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness no longer has a taste for dead material things. Therefore, restrictions are there for the less intelligent neophytes in the spiritual advancement of life. But such restrictions are only good if one actually has a taste for Krishna consciousness. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. Text 60. Mi scusi. Translation. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. Purport. There are many learned sages, philosophers, and transcendentalists who try to conquer the senses, but in spite of their endeavors, even the greatest of them sometimes fall victim to material sense enjoyment due to the agitated mind. Even Visvamitra, a great sage and perfect yogi, was misled by Manaka into sex enjoyment. Although the yogi was endeavoring for sense control with severe types of penance and yoga practice, and of course there are so many similar instances in the history of the world, therefore it is very difficult to control the mind and the senses without being fully Krishna conscious. Without engaging the mind in Krishna, one cannot cease such material engagements. A practical example is given by Sri Yamuna Karya, Sri Yamuna Karya, a great saint and devotee who says, "Since my mind has been engaged in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, and I have been enjoying an ever new transcendental humor, whenever I think of sex life with a woman, my face at once turns from it, and I spit at the thought." Gay. Krishna consciousness is such a transcendentally nice thing that automatically material enjoyment becomes distasteful. It is as if a hungry man has satisfied his hunger by a sufficient quantity of nutritious edibles. Maharyaja Ambarisa, Ambarisha, also conquered a great yogi, Durvasa Muni, simply because his mind was engaged in Krishna consciousness. He had a greater output of energy than his opponent in a more simplified field. Text 61 translates as, "One who restrains his senses and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence." Purport. That the highest conception of yoga perfection is Krishna consciousness is clearly explained in this verse, and unless one is Krishna conscious, it is not at all possible to control the senses. As cited above, the great sage Durvasa Muni picked a quarrel with Maharyaja Ambarisha, and Durvasya Muni unnecessarily became angry out of pride and therefore could not check his senses. On the other hand, the king, although not as powerful as a yogi, although not as powerful a yogi as the sage, but a devotee of the Lord, silently tolerated all the sage's injustices and thereby emerged victorious. Stop flashing, cunt, goddamn. The king was able to control his senses because of the following qualifications as mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Konij Ambarisha fixed his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, engaged his words in describing the abode of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the temple of the Lord, his ears in hearing the pastimes of the Lord, his eyes in seeing the form of the Lord, his body in touching the body of the devotee, his nostrils in smelling the flavor of the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, his tongue in tasting the tulasi leaves offered to him, his legs in traveling to the holy place where his temple is situated, his head in offering, whoa, what the fuck, obeisance? I don't know what that is. It's not obedience. Obeisances. Oh, obantious unto the Lord, and his desires in fulfilling the desires of the Lord. And all these qualifications made him fit to get a new car, become a Matpara devotee of the Lord. The word Matpara is most significant in this connection. How one can become a Matpara is described in the life of Maharyaja Ambarishi, Srila Baladeva Vidyamhusanya, a great scholar and Acharya in the line of the Matpara, remarks, something I'm not going to try to pronounce, the senses can be completely controlled only by the strength of devotional service to Krishna. Excuse me. Also, the example of fire is sometimes given. As the small flames within burn everything within the room, similarly Lord Vishnu, situated in the heart of the yogi, burns up all kinds of impurities. The Yogi Sutra also prescribes meditation on Vishnu, and not meditation on the void. The so-called yogis who meditate on something which is not the Vishnu form, simply waste their time in a vain search after some phantasmagoria. We have to be Krishna conscious, devoted to the personality of Godhead. This is the aim of the real yoga. Do you even yoga, bro? Text 60 the 2. Translation. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment lust develops, and from lust anger arises. Purport. One who is not Krishna conscious is subjected to material desires while contemplating the objects of senses. The senses require real engagements. Excuse me. And if they are not engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, they will certainly seek engagement in the service of materialism. In the material world, everyone, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to say nothing of other demigods in the heavenly planets, is subjected to the influence of sense objects, and the only method to get out of this puzzle of material existence is to become Krishna conscious. Lord Shiva was deep in meditation, but when Parvati agitated him for sense pleasure, he agreed to the proposal, and as a result, Kartikeya was born. Kartikeya was born. When Haridasa Thakur was a young devotee of the Lord, he was similarly allured by the incarnation of Maya Devi, illusion goddess. But Haridasa easily passed the test because of his unallowed devotion to Lord Krishna, as illustrated in the above-mentioned verse of Sri Yamunakarya. A sincere devotee of the Lord shuns all material sense enjoyment due to his higher taste for spiritual enjoyment in the association of the Lord. That is the secret of success. One who is not therefore in Krishna consciousness, however powerful he may be in controlling the senses by artificial repression, is surely ultimately to fail, for the slightest thought of sense pleasure will agitate him to gratify his desires. Well, since we're done right at 20 minutes, that will just have to do. I've never gone live like this before. How do I How do I end this? Woher kommst du? Kein weiß ich. Woher kommst du? What does that mean? My German is not that good. Where do I come from? Oh, Maryland. Seriously, how do I turn this thing off? I don't know how to do it. I think I just hit X. Alright. Bin ich von Baltimore. Wie bist du? Let me see. Yeah, okay. Hit me up in the comment section. I think it's just this button. Peace.